The last in the series of implementing toString equals and compareTo will be this one, compareTo. And remember that when you have an object, you don't have the choice of using the operators less than, greater than, or equal to. But you still need to maybe sort things. And so here's the signature, like we've talked about the other ones, of compareTo. Similar to the other ones, you want it to be public because you want the driver to be able to access it. It must return an integer. Must be exactly like this, lowercase c, uppercase t, and it will accept any object, the object that you are defining it for. And so this code would be used in the driver. And let's think about the line class like we did for the example for equals. And you are comparing two lines, line 1 and line 2, and like equals, one line invokes it. Here's the dot, kind of almost covered with my pen and now totally covered. And here's the line that is passed. And what's important for you to check all the time is not that it equals -1 or some other integer that you think it should be, but that it is less than 0. And remember, I kind of said that this would be the left-hand side and this is the right-hand side. And if you go left to right with your thinking, line 1 is less than line 2 if the integer value returns is less than 0. But here, you going left to right reading this, line 1 is greater than line 2 if the integer returned is greater than 0. Okay, so now this one is in the line class. You are defining it for a line, return an int compareTo, and inside the compareTo method, you're going to call the line that is passed ln. Now, one way, kind of the boring way, I guess you could say it, is you take the kind of same left-hand side, right-hand side idea, and you say, if my length comes from the object that invoked the call, ln comes from the line that was passed. So we're sticking with the left to right kind of idea. Now, if my length, and in this particular one, we don't care if it's a double or not. So if my length is any bit less than the length of the line that's passed, return a -1. Else, if it's greater than it, if it's strictly greater than it, and once again for compareTo, we don't have to check the tolerance nearly as much. We return a 1, which is positive, else we return 0. So we have to make sure that all three paths, less than, greater than, or equal to, are provided for. But let's look at a really cool way to do it, and remembering that we do not need to specifically return a -1, +1, and a 0. Here's a super slick way. Here's compareTo, and it has exactly and only one line of code in it. Return my length minus ln.getLength. Okay, so it's going to return a value. Now this totally assumes a little bit of a different situation. You are assuming that my length is not a double anymore. This would not work for that particular thing because you can't return a double as an integer, and the whole idea of this would not be accurate. So if my length is an integer in this particular case, you just subtract them, and it works exactly as it is expected to. It's important to note what this says down here, and we would not be able to do this up above if my length and ln.getLength were doubles. The first way that I modeled would work for that. And then the last comment that I have is our topic that will kind of lead us into the second semester will be inheritance. And I have talked about the fact that the AP committee focuses on this. They'll take a class and they'll say, this class implements comparable. And what that means is that compareTo is defined, guaranteed. So we'll talk about more about that later. So that's it for compareTo.